I think one of the first big feuds that kind of puts you on the map in a lot of ways in WWE was with Bret Hart. I mean, that was the kind of one of your coming out as a true main event superstar. Would you agree with that with Bret?
Oh, definitely. And it was really interesting because, Bret had seen me coming in WCW, as he always says. And I'd been an admirer of Bret Hart's work. I was a big Hart Foundation, him and Anvil. I loved them as a tag team.
Yes.
And I'd been watching Bret for a long time because he'd gotten the business before I did. And I remember he was going to do a surgery to get his knee cleaned up. And he needed an opponent for Survivor Series. And he told Vince, hey, man, I can make money with this guy. And I get the phone call from Bret, and he wants to work with me. And so he handpicked me to come back, from his surgery. And we would go out there, and this is, it's an old school match, Chris. It's kind of that classic pro wrestling style. And, if you watch that match back, it's a little bit grainy. We're not digital. The ring's mic different. But that's a sold-out crowd in the Garden. And you know how the Garden can be, man. It's a magical place. And without a whole lot of hype or just a whole lot of build, dude, we went out there and just turned in an instant classic. And Bret was coming back. And if you go back and you watch that match and then you watch the finish with that gimmick roll-up off of the $1 Million Dream, and then as I roll out, because he's outsmarted me, if you watch his face, and this is a shoot, he mouths, because he's dead dog tired and he was blowed up because, he'd been at the house, healing up. And it was that grueling of a match that, Bret Hart is one of the greatest of all time. So the fact that he hadn't done a whole lot of in-ring work, or none really, and had to knock a little bit of ring rust off, and actually, he was gassed. But to that note, Bret was always great 30 minutes into a match of just looking dead dog tired, but being fresh as a daisy. But on this occasion, because it was a comeback, he was actually tired after the match because it was that grueling. It was a classic style match that I was very proud of. And at that time, putting in a match like that, Vince started to see, who and what, I could do as a performer, as Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I've said, many times, that match in the Garden, WrestleMania 13, obviously, in Chicago, Rosemont, Bret Hart put me on the map. He made Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I had to do a lot of it myself, obviously, but that's how important Bret Hart was to my career.
When you talk about WrestleMania 13, I mean, obviously, you have so many iconic moments, but that finish is still, when people say the Bret Austin finish, everyone knows exactly what you're talking about. People have been mimicking it for years, and they will probably for as long as wrestling lasts. Well, first of all, tell us about that match and that finish, because when you watch that match, you can tell that, I'm assuming, you didn't call a lot of stuff going into that.
No, man, it was kind of like we had, like you can see my hand. I got 5 fingers, and it's like, okay, kind of knew a start, kind of knew a heat spot, kind of knew, a few things were going to happen. Then we just filled in the gaps out there. And if you go back and watch that match, if you watch me, I've got my head down, everything's protected, but you can see who's calling the match. I'm calling it.
Wow.
But you watch it. But, we had already talked. So anyway, Bret said a few things, but I was kind of calling the match. And we just went out there, and I'll never forget, we went into the finish room with Vince, this way back in the day, the way things were, in that old building. And we sat down, and Vince says, hey, man, you guys go do whatever you want to do. You got about this amount of time. But, what I'm seeing, Steve, is you passing out and the sharpshooter from Bret. And I said, Bret was down with it because it was his finish. He was going over.
Yeah.
Bret went over every single match I ever wrestled in, and I'm cool with it. I didn't need to beat the guy. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've never beaten Bret in my entire career, and I'm not going to make a comeback to beat him. So there we were in the finish room, and he says, all right, you guys. He goes, that's all I got for you. So me and Bret go out to the ring. We're just kind of standing there on the apron talking. And they said, all right, man. I said, I'll be right back. And I went back into Vince's office because I'm willing to do business with Bret, no problem. But I'm a little worried about that finish. So I go back into Vince's office, and I still don't know him that well at this time. And I said, God dang, I said, Vince, are you sure about that finish? And you know how Vince talks. And he looks at you. He goes, oh, goddamn. Oh, goddamn, Steve, I'm telling you, it'll work. That's exactly what he said. And dude, if Vince gives me that reassurance and he's the guy, right? So I said, okay, I'm down with it. So go back out there and me and Bret are talking. And he goes, Steve, if you're going to pass out the sharpshooter, you need to have some color. I said, you think? He goes, yeah. And at the time, there's a no color policy. And so, I'm the newer guy. I ain't got no tenure. And that's when Bret offers up. It wasn't that I'd done the business plenty, but under this new, place that I'm in, I ain't got no stroke. He goes, hey man, if you want, I'll get it for you. I mean, that's insurance policy. He just put me under his umbrella, right? And dude, there's a point in there. I hit my head on the guardrail and, accidentally, I got busted open. But that was his idea. And on that exchange, when we go to the floor, I told him, I said, judgment call, meaning, hey, if you want to, get it. But if you don't worry about it because we got these people hook, line, and sinker.
Gotcha, yeah.
Well, okay. Of course, he was following through. Dude, I'm so glad he did because, had I would have done the same exact thing, the way I sold that, it was a master. I mean, I can't sit there and blow smoke up my ass. I sold it like a mother, right? But had I not had all that red shit on my face, streaming through my teeth, my goatee, and then you see how much blood I actually lost, and it wasn't one of those gore fests because you can go too hard and get too much, and it just becomes distracting and just hard to watch. This was not hard to watch. This just added so much level to the struggle that I was going through, but was not just a turnoff. And so when it became, as you said, one of the most iconic images, in my opinion, in the history of the wrestling business. I'm not going to say the most, but one of the most.